back by popular demand. You're listening to the 1983 podcast. One of the more recent episodes that I did, we went through and compared Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, and that was before the election. So I kind of wanted to go through and do that again and just kind of see what the headlines are on each site, compare the stories to each other, and see if there's any outstanding bias that we can see. So we'll start on Fox News. Out of the three big ones, this is probably my favorite one. There's a lot of stuff that pops up on here that I don't like, though. So the headline, the very top of the page, we've got suspected gang member linked to human smuggler as new details emerge from traffic stop. And, you know, we're covering these stories that are like the George Floyd stuff. I don't know why we're still doing that, but the left says that they're a saint and the right says that they're evil, and we have to find all of this evidence to mount against this person. The reality is they're probably a gang member, and if they're linked to a human smuggler, then we probably ought to do at least a trial. I don't know. I guess that's just my personal opinion, but I think all of this, you know, dancing around the issue, if they have broken the law, we probably ought to treat them like they've broken the law. They're criminals. Allegedly. The next article down, taking aim, Gabbard, so Tulsi Gabbard, identifies deep state criminals within intel community, sends a message. That's something that Trump has dealt with in the last two elections, is people from the inside leaking stuff and undercutting him. You know, I don't know what you can do when your government is this size, though. A lot of these people are lifetime politicians. There's not a whole lot that you can stamp out in 4 years. And you kind of have to guess who's on your side and who's not. So we're probably going to continue to see articles about this. If you listen to Tucker Carlson this morning, he was talking about it. Well, I guess I listened to Tucker Carlson this morning. I don't know if that episode was from this morning. But he was talking to a dude that, you know, just got ejected from the Pentagon and lost his job. And he's being blamed for leaking information. And he claims that he didn't, but how do you know? Next story in, and we'll only do the top 4 stories for each one. We'll just kind of go through and make sure that we, you know, cover what they want you to see, which would be at the top of the page. This one's titled Power Trip. Soros prosecutor torched for charging decision after Walz staffer vandalizes Teslas. I'm assuming they're talking about the potential vice president from the last election, Tim Walz. Yeah, why are we doing this? You may dislike Elon Musk, but what you're really doing is you're harming the people that have these dealerships. There's nothing to gain from this. It's not harming him in any way, shape, or form. If anything, he's selling more parts and pieces to these Tesla dealerships because you're, destroying personal and private property that's going to be sold to someone else. The reality is it's not really getting anywhere. All you're doing is taking out your frustration on innocent people. The next one, TV drama. CBS anchors open up about corporate pressure as Trump lawsuit rocks the network. We're actually going to click into that one. It says it's a 5-minute read. We'll see. I read pretty slow. Hopefully I have this muted. I do not.
For us here,
there we go. Got it muted. Okay, CBS Evening News anchors John Dickerson and Maurice Dubois, however you say that. There's a city called Dubois near me. Paid tribute to outgoing 60 Minutes producer while being candid about the corporate pressure that the network is facing from President Donald Trump. Excuse me. I'm getting over being sick. Finally, tonight, a story that is personal for us here at CBS News. Dickerson told viewers at the end of Tuesday's newscast, our friend and colleague Bill Owens announced today he is stepping down as the executive producer of 60 Minutes. In its more than half a century on the air, 60 Minutes has prided itself on independent reporting. Yeah, right. But Owens said he was no longer allowed to run the broadcast as it had been run, and to make independent decisions. Dickerson went on to acknowledge that 60 Minutes was at the center of Trump's lawsuit against the network, but then said CBS parent Paramount Global is trying to resolve this suit as it works to complete a merger that needs government approval. That's a bad place to be, huh? Trying to get the government's approval and you've pissed off the government. I mean, I would hope that they would be fair. I don't think it's right to, go around denying people because of their political beliefs. But I mean, you don't necessarily need to suck up to the government. You probably ought to not piss them off. Okay, we're moving on to CNN. Vance threatens to abandon Ukraine talks. The move comes as Trump slammed Zelensky for his comments that Ukraine would never recognize Russia's control of Crimea. I mean, this is just kind of par for the course as far as what you should see at the top of the CNN. The Ukraine war, it's something that they focused on. It's something that the left is very adamant about continuing. They want the war to continue so that they can fight Russia. I don't understand it. The next one down, Trump targets college accreditation process in new executive order. Harvard's fight with Trump administration is just getting started. The cost is already high. I do believe Trump has, well, at least his administration has been removing grants and doing stuff like that for states and colleges that are not following the rules that they've set up as far as Title IX and, keeping men out of women's sports. I don't know about the accreditation process. I know a lot of people have said that Harvard has gone downhill, but I don't know if they're, one of those schools that should be unaccredited. And on the far right hand side, there's actually something that's Christian. Convicted cardinal demands to join conclave picking pope, setting up standoff. I may lose my voice during this podcast. I don't know why it has to be controversial. We can't just, hey, everyone in the country and everyone in the world is mourning the loss of the Pope. I'm not Catholic, but I understand. One of the leaders of my church passed away not too long ago, and it's not a fun thing to deal with. And not too long ago, I guess that's a few years. So I don't know. It's all whatever, however you want to take it. Trump starts the clock for new tariffs to take effect. That's another thing the left is piling up on and the right is trying to back, although there's some people on the right that are coming out against it. I think it just depends on what their constituents are saying and, who needs to flip-flop to what side to balance it out. So we'll move on to MSNBC and see what they have to say. This is by far my least favorite news source. Okay, top left. Ryan Coogler's Sinners isn't just scaring audiences, it's scaring Hollywood. I'm not even sure what that is. It must be a TV show or a movie. He looks like he might be wearing a cross in the picture. I'm not 100% sure. I guess we can click into it and just see. Oh no, he's wearing a picture of someone on a dog tag style necklace. Oh, he's a Black Panther. No, he's not. Right, director Ryan Coogler at the premiere of Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Sorry, got some dead air right now, trying to figure out what this is all about. Gleefully genre blending soulful vampire spectacle signifies on the American and Southern legacy of white supremacy at a moment when teaching the uncomfortable history of race in America is being outlawed. Is he trying to say that that's actually what's happening right now, or that's what's happening in his story? Because it's definitely not against the law to teach about the history of race in America. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of context here that I think is worth saying. Well, here's a quote from LeVar Burton on X. Y'all, #Sinners is an extraordinary accomplishment by all parties involved, both in front of and behind the camera. At Michael B. Ford Jordan feasts, as does the rest of the cast. However, make no mistake, this is Ryan Coogler's triumph. Next level storytelling. Get thee to a movie theater. That didn't really shed any light on anything. So the left is race baiting, and what's new? Judge Howell, DOJ threw a temper tantrum worthy of a 3-year-old. Gosh, they really don't give you a whole lot of context as to what these stories are. And it's kind of unfair to go against the top four, the top four things that, that you see at the top of MSNBC.com, because they have these little micro ads that pop up on the left and right hand side. And I guess those are less important stories that they hope you'll read, but you probably won't. Top right, Rubio's MAGA transformation at the State Department isn't going to end well. I don't know what they mean by that, and I really don't want to take the time to read it. Hegseth's chaotic tenure at the Pentagon is even worse than I imagined. So you can see it on this, the MSNBC is still really leaning far left. I don't think they've learned that a lot of America wants to at least move back to center, if not a little bit right. It would not surprise me if we see these guys going out of business. CNN, kind of down the road, leaning left. There's a few titles of these articles that seem like they're really against the right. But then you see like tornado survivors blocked from federal recovery aid. FEMA losing roughly 20% of permanent staff, including longtime leaders ahead of hurricane season. So now we're leaning far left again, where the cuts that Doge did supposedly are keeping people from getting federal aid. If you look at the stats for FEMA and how they've done since Hurricane Katrina, it is abysmal. It's probably like if anyone worked the way that they work in their job, they would have lost their job a long time ago. It's pretty ridiculous. I don't see, after all of the whining and griping and moaning that the Republicans did about the storms on the eastern side of the country, North Carolina being flooded and hit by storms. Was it Tennessee, Kentucky, somewhere out there also had a pretty bad go. I don't see them treating people like this the way that the left is saying that they're going to, or that they are. I don't know. It's just really hard to go through these because you can see the bias right off the bat. I was in a propaganda unit. I was in a psychological operations unit in the military, and I used to see articles like this all the time. I mean, they are written specifically for a group of people. They're written to divide people. They use Fox News, they use CNN, they use MSNBC to make a split down the middle, so that you're not mad at the people that are in charge, that are making all the mistakes and making all of the inflation and making things more expensive because they're screwing up. What was it, the bird flu or something? We had to kill like 70 billion chickens, so now eggs are expensive. That's something that we have controls for, and they have been put in place so that we don't have issues like this. We've pumped billions and billions of dollars into Ukraine. We've pumped billions of dollars into illegal aliens that have come across the border and are taking advantage of our system. And the reality is, we should be mad at the people that allowed all of that stuff to happen. We shouldn't be mad at each other. It doesn't matter what religion you are. It doesn't matter what race you are. It doesn't matter how you identify. Like, none of that stuff should be public information. We shouldn't give a shit about it. But instead, we are fighting with each other and doing exactly what they want us to do. And that's what I was getting at by saying I was in a PSYOP unit. That's something that we did with the tribes in Afghanistan, and that's something that we did with the people in Iraq. We weren't necessarily, saying, hey, the U.S. is better than anything else, and we want you to side with us. It was side with us so that you don't have to side with those other people. We want you to keep fighting them and fight them as hard as you can so that we don't have to do the dirty work, essentially, is what it boiled down to. We might as well throw CBS into this mix. Do they still do news? Who knows? Let's see, what would it be? CBSnews.com. It's definitely not CBS.com. Yes, they do. And I think historically these guys have leaned left as well. So it's kind of hard if you're on the right to get news. But okay, top one, Durbin retirement to prompt shakeup in Senate Democratic leadership. Oh yeah, Dick Durbin is retiring. That's fantastic. And it doesn't mean that he's going to do it anytime soon. He's just, once his term is over in 2026, he won't be running for reelection. I think that's a good move on the Democrat Party side. He hasn't really done anything worth talking about, and maybe some new faces and fresh blood will start to help out the Democrats with gaining a voter base again, and recapturing some of the people that moved middle or center right. Next one down. Oh, they've copied CNN on this one. Hegseth orders makeup studio installed at Pentagon. That's not surprising. I mean, he's an actor. He's been on Fox News as an affiliate for quite a long time. He did other media in the past. Honestly, that's something that was brought up quite a few times while I was in the military. I actually went to the Pentagon. We had some people that did my job, well, the job that I was trained for originally. They did my job in the Pentagon, and all they did was connect video conferences and do public announcements. And a lot of times, I mean, obviously the manly men in the military don't want to wear makeup, but a lot of times it was brought up that maybe we should make this more like media. Maybe this, this style of like just pop your head off the pillow in the morning and come in dressed in your uniform, looking exactly like you did yesterday, looking dirty. And I mean, they don't look dirty. I guess they're in their dress blues and all of that stuff, but make yourself look like you belong on the TV is essentially what it came down to. And there was millions of dollars spent on camera equipment, audio equipment, all of that stuff while I was in, to kind of update the way, I mean, the studios that we were working in, we were working with, 10-year-old equipment, and you're just not keeping up with civilians at that point. Gang experts cast doubt on Trump's claim about MS-13 finger tattoos. That has to do with, let's see, what was that article? The suspected gang member linked to human smuggler as new details emerge from traffic stop on Fox News. This is CBS's response. They're just going to argue the opposite side. I mean, honestly, it's the same thing as like having an argument with someone or trying to resolve an issue between two people. The truth is usually somewhere in the center. This guy may not be an MS-13 gang member, but he's obviously on someone's radar for some reason. And I don't know what the reason is. I haven't paid too much attention to it, honestly, but the reality is he's done something wrong, or he got caught up in something that he wasn't supposed to be a part of. And at the very least, there needs to be an investigation into whether or not he's an MS-13 gang member. Next one, more top stories. FBI says online scams raked in record $16.6 billion last year. So I am an IT guy by trade. My day job, I'm a systems administrator for a manufacturing company. And we see stuff like this all day, every day. Phishing emails, spam emails, obviously written by people that aren't from this country. Terrible grammar, wrong punctuation, capitalizing words that aren't supposed to be capitalized. The reality is there's so many ways that, like, go on to Reddit. You can see all of these people that have so many ideas for how to keep people from Western Africa and India and where are some of the other problems, Southeast Asia. There's just groups sitting there and they're communicating with Americans and they're tricking them into giving over billions, obviously, of dollars. It's not necessarily scams either, just scams. You have ransomware. So what happens with ransomware is someone brings a piece of malicious software into the workplace, whether it's through clicking on something in an email or opening an attachment in an email. They bring in an infected USB thumbstick, plug it into their computer. It doesn't really matter how it happens. The reality is the software or the virus, I guess, that's brought in to the company encrypts the computer's data, puts a password on it, and it's locked down. It locks you out of it, and it basically threatens if you don't send X amount of Bitcoin to whatever wallet the person that sent the scam uh, has designated. If you don't do it by a certain time, they're going to delete the data and you'll never get it back. There's so many ways to prevent this from happening. And if companies would realize, I saw a statistic, it was like 86% of companies claim that they have had a cyber threat, cyber attack. For the amount of money that it costs to replace all of your computers or pay ransoms, or there's so many things that cost money in these scams, but for the amount of money that it takes, there are very, very simple ways to back up your information, and there's very simple ways to encrypt your information and protect your information. It costs way less to pay for those things than it does to pay for a cyber attack. And even cyber insurance is worth paying for in a lot of cases. If you're a company with like 2 or 3 people, obviously you're not going to be able to afford that, but you're also not the big fish that they're looking for. Companies with 50 to 500 employees tend to be the top priority because they're making millions of dollars. They have money to give up, but they're also not running giant IT firms that are paying attention to all of the most recent issues. But the FBI is paying attention to it, and that's great, but they don't seem like they're really actively doing anything to stop it. There's a website from the FBI called it's the IC3. It's the Internet Crimes something Commission. I can't remember what it stands for, but we have turned in reports to them for people reaching out and trying to change someone's payroll to their bank account. There's been a few other scams that we've seen where someone tried to get the CEO to wire money to the CFO. The funny thing is their offices are right next door, and they were sitting next to each other when the email came in. So the CEO was like, "Hey, are you actually needing this money?" The CFO was like, "I'm not going to ever ask you to wire me money." But stuff like that happens, and I wish that we could do something about it. The reality is those countries aren't playing ball with us. Even if we threaten to, $16.6 billion could be made up in tariffs. If you were to tell India, listen, if you don't put a stop to this, you need to get your people under control. We're going to tariff you for $30 billion, and you're just going to pay off the whole bill. The reality is it's chump change to the government. They don't see $16.6 billion as very much, but for you and I that don't make $1 million a year, it's a massive amount of money, and we're paying the brunt of it. The big companies that make billions of dollars are not paying this out. They have safeguards in place. Moving down, seafood industry looks to capitalize on New England's invasive green crab. Invasive. So we're just going to continue to allow them to invade while we eat them. I don't know if they even taste good. They look like they're just tiny crab. I've never even heard of green crab. If they're tasty, I'm down. Like we have crawdad up here, and we call them freshwater lobster. They weren't native to this area. They were introduced, but we're happy that they're here. Treasury's Besant sees an opportunity for a big deal with China. China, I'm finding out more and more every single day, they're not as big of a threat as we make them out to be. I think the DoD has to make them a threat in order to continue getting funding for a lot of their projects. I think that's the only reason that they get as much face time as they do. The reality is it's a paper house, and it will fall in on itself eventually. If we can offload our manufacturing and shipping to India or even to the United States fast enough, it's not even going to matter if China stops sending us products, because we will get online fast enough to be able to ship them from a different country. And the reality is, we don't have a whole lot of negative feelings toward India outside of the, they're allowing scam centers to run out of some of their biggest cities. But it's only a national security threat if we continue to use China's products and only rely on them. Well, hopefully that was informative. If we had to rank these by right to left, I would say Fox News is moderate right. CNN is moderate left, with some people leaning pretty far left as far as their writers go. MSNBC, I think, is far left. CBS looks like they've moved a little bit more toward the center, but I would still consider them center right, leaning toward probably a little bit more moderate than CNN. I didn't scroll down far enough to see a whole bunch of stuff, but they do have a remembering Pope Francis. That's something that I talked about. Maybe CBS or maybe CNN wants to do something like that, to return to the center a little bit and bring in some more. I mean, the Catholic Church has so many members. Not that you need to pander to people to trick them into voting for you, but if you were going to, the Catholic Church is a pretty big group of people, and you're not dealing with a whole lot of like racial woes or gender woes or anything like that by pandering to the Catholics. It's just a whole big group of people that you can target. Thanks for listening in. I appreciate it. Hopefully it wasn't too terrible of an episode, and have a good day.